Yes. Yeah, and we are live.
Yeah,
We are
we both
finally
almost
done.
slept through our own show. It's been that week.
Swear to God, this is this is one of those weeks, and not only one of those days where it's been back to back meetings, presentations, more meetings, and I'm talking like day job, YouTube stuff, a whole bunch of
Yeah,
things going on. And I was telling Juan just a second ago, I said, I almost fell asleep and I panic woke up out of the couch thinking I slept through this thing, right? Like I slept through the show. We're like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh no, I still have some time. Okay, I'm okay. I'm
and
okay.
that's the worst way to wake up. But
I
while you
know.
were doing that, I was literally nodding off while trying to eat a hot dog for dinner tonight. I'm so
It's
wrecked.
been a tough day, man.
It's been a
Seriously.
week, man. It really
Well, I know
has.
absolutely. Yeah, one day after another, but like so
Right.
I've been up since like 3:10. And I started at 4:30. I had a 7 o'clock. No, I had a 6 o'clock. Today's first day back to school with Omar, so we had to get him ready, kind of go back and walk him through.
Oh, that's cool though.
So half days, we're back into it. Kids are back in school here in Southern California, so that, and then top that off with a whole bunch of new project I'm working on during the day with the day job stuff. So that they wanted to meet, they wanted to talk. So there's a lot of things going on, and I didn't take a time to rest. I should have taken like a short, quick power nap or something like that, but I didn't. So yeah, if I seem a little bit absent-minded, I was telling Juan before the show, if I miss a beat, let me know or reel me in.
I kind of feel like at some point in this podcast, both of us are about to hit like just some like 1,000-yard stare. There's going to be like that empty, awkward pause.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of us will go, well, yeah. So the cool thing about that is scramble, 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 vamp, vamp, vamp.
Exactly. Try to figure out what it is. And just like, I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
And I'm kind of right there in the same boat with you. Like it genuinely was a week of good things. For our
I
show
saw you
called
on all of All About Android. I was actually in the chat trying to talk, and when you guys were recording, but they weren't reading my chat, so I was like, okay, I see how it is, because
they don't really do a lot of interaction.
It's a very well-oiled machine. I'll say
it really
that.
is at this
When
point,
I was on the show, it was like absolute, like I wish I could run my podcast the way they do with the production, and and they throw a little bit of comedy, but it was nice to see you there again. I mean, I know you guys are really good friends. It's been about a couple of years since I was on last, but it's still, it was still a lot of fun to see you. You've been around. That's what I'm trying to say. You've been busy.
Yeah. So I did that. I also did my my buddy's podcast, Augmented Experience podcast. I just know as the AE podcast. Yes, Augmented Experience podcast. Where we talked about some of the Apple security stuff. I was in a bunch of pre-production meetings on some projects, which hopefully will be cool. And then this afternoon, you were up early this morning. I was up early this morning, sort of troubleshooting the last couple steps for us to get that ASUS live stream out the door, which is always kind of a head trip when they're just like, hey, Juan, like just jump into StreamYards and run this stream for Newegg and the world's largest PC component manufacturer, and handle the live stream and handle the chat and host and make sure all of the assets are in place and do a drawing for some giveaways that we're going to do. And that's a lot.
Wait, so you did that this afternoon?
Yeah, that was this afternoon.
That's exactly what I was doing at 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Except it was for Honor.
Mm-hmm.
So
let me just sit in the hot seat and host this thing for you and run it.
Why don't I run the whole thing? Yeah, exactly. I had to actually troubleshoot an issue that I didn't realize I needed to fix, was how to bring in an audio feed, a video and audio feed without latency. And I had to literally run so I figured it out at the end, was I literally had to bring it in as a presenter, as a person. Yes. And then I had to run it on a separate PC and run
with the audio
and just to get
it's
like
so janky, but it works.
It's such a weird way to do it, but but once I did it and I realized like it was buttery smooth. The feed was great. No stuttering, no issues, and the network handled it like a champ. It was so early in the morning, nobody was on the internet. The internet was empty at that point here in my area. So it was, I was stressing out. That's why I woke up like an hour and a half before it. worried that I was, that things were going to go up, that people are not going to show up and whatever. So short answer, I had that. And then I had a pre-briefing for an upcoming thing right after, like the second it ended, I closed StreamYard and opened up Zoom. I was like, huh? And it's like, we're talking about, so amazing that we both had very similar experiences. Yeah. StreamYard pulled through. I'll have to say that. StreamYard held its own.
It was a good day for StreamYard.
Yes, yes.
They came in clutch for I think both of our projects.
Absolutely. So I see we have a lot of our friends already. LFA is already in the chat. David Burns is in there. Aditya, Greg, Michael Peppertech as usual. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us. And of course, Andrew.
Andrew, Fat Produce.
Exactly. Senor.
Gary the Fireman.
Yes.
Greg. Yeah, we got them all. Sebastian popped in to say hello there. Excellent.
Yeah, I see that. Yes. So it's
Orad and I have been sharing some DMs about all this like Samsung news and
that's right. That was another thing. You were also on what is it called? The Twitter chat, Twitter fleet, whatever they call the Twitter.
Well, Ted. So I didn't host that. I just
I know it was Ted
jumped into their. So I do this thing where someone creates a platform for people to talk, and then I join it, and then I suck all the air out of the room. And I unfortunately did a bit of that when Ted, Saeed Ted, put together a Twitter Spaces to talk about Samsung, and I felt kind of bad, but it was, I feel like, a pretty good back and forth conversation.
Absolutely. Zach jumped in at the end as well with us. It was a good conversation. I was in the middle of doing things during the day, and as I was going on, it says some gadget guy is talking. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Twitter has a weird way of notifying you when somebody you follow.
It's so weird.
Yeah. So I was like,
I have to get like DMs on so-and-so's, joining this Twitter space. Like, why is that a DM?
Yeah. So, but anyway, when I saw that, I jumped in. It was a good conversation. I liked it. I could see the different point of views of the conversation, obviously, with both sides. And what I wanted to the only thing I was trying to say at the time was that both sides are looking at it, but with the understanding of the I forgot the name of the gentleman.
Well, hold on. Do we just want to start off this week's show? Because I feel Samsung's pretty big news, and there was a lot to talk about with their announcements. And it seems like every day we get away from Unpacked, my feelings morph on these products a little bit more. Where I'm getting baby steps, even a little bit more frustrated with Galaxy Watch, and increasingly more impressed with Z Flip. But I kind of feel like Z Fold misses the mark.
I think the Z. So to comment back on the conversation. So obviously we didn't know this before. So when you were on All About Android, you were discussing the concept of the Samsung's claiming they're going to be trying to bring it back. Are they going to be able to win back markets, sell a lot of units on these foldables? Obviously at the time we were talking ahead of Unpacked. That's when your conversation was there. But now we now understand that Samsung's approach to this is the fact that they lowered the price on the Z Flip. I think the Z Flip's going to end up becoming the star of the show.
For sure.
Although, obviously, Samsung would like you to buy the $1,800 unit. $1,000 for a phone that even if you do any trade it on, drops it down to about $700 or $800 if you do a decent trade in into it. Is a foldable. Also has a bigger display, has 5G. Not necessarily going to have the longest battery, but that form factor, the function that we get there, it's very unique. I cannot. So I can't wait to try. I want to be able to try it out. I'm hoping Best Buy will start having units for testing very soon, so I can just go and play with one.
For sure.
But yeah, the conversation of upgrading, or the conversation that you guys were having on Twitter, it struck a really interesting opinion on my end, because I do agree on one side with your approach, where basically Samsung's just literally not reading the room correctly. They're not walking. They're not really following the trends. They are basically making compromises. They're not trying to give you for the lack of a better word, balls to the wall. They basically give me the full experience, as you said, and I agree with you on that. And I kind of also agreed with, and I don't remember the name of the gentleman that was talking to you, the one that was talking, that you guys were going back and forth a little bit. Not Saeed, the other gentleman. I forgot his name.
There were a couple of people in the room.
There was. I want to say it was Todd, but I could be wrong. But short answer, his approach was, it's like a lot of people would go into the store and they would really base their decision mostly on, how much more am I going to be paying a month
Oh,
for this
Trent.
device?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Trent. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew the conversation I'm bad with names. I'll just say that right now.
Formerly Tech Rants, but Trent's Tech.
Trent's Tech, yes. But what I wanted to kind of to his point, I understand his approach, and I agree with him. That's somewhat how I do it when I go in with a T-Mobile device. But there's one thing that we also forget is that at $1,000, I think it's $800 or $900 and above, every single phone you jump from one phone, or you just say how much more you're going to pay, there is a down payment that is non-refundable.
And you pay taxes.
And so that there was that part of the conversation that I felt like he didn't mention or he didn't touch on, because in a way, yes, maybe your monthly payment goes up $10 a month, but that's because you've already put down payment and reduced the total value that you're financing. That's how the number is lower. And that's been my biggest gripe with T-Mobile, and not personally
these
at their
like
end.
Perpetual leasing programs.
Absolutely, yeah, which is what I'm in. And it was great at the beginning when phones were around $700-800, but now every phone is like $1,000+. And of course,
and now T-Mobile, this one takes it up to $1,800 to start.
Absolutely. So that has like a $600 down payment that you do not get back. So even if I want to do a jump on demand for that, and let's say switch out of it, and I'm only paying, let's say, $50 or $45 or whatever, I lost $600.
Yeah, you bought a Pixel 5.
Exactly. And you gave it away.
You had to pay $50 a month for 2 years. So I mean, his point is well taken when we're talking about phones where their difference, the delta is $900 to $1,200. You know what? I totally agree with him there. I'm probably not going to feel that difference. But going from like a OnePlus 9 kind of phone, a Galaxy S21 kind of phone, no one's making the jump to a Fold 3.
No.
Or I should say, the people who do make that jump will absolutely feel it, and they know what they're doing. No one is just casually chipping in an extra $40 a month, or paying $600 up front and then still paying $50 a month. So it's that kind of. I'm not accusing Trent of goalpost moving.
Oh, no,
but I feel that that's a common theme in a lot of our tech conversations. I was in another Twitter space just as an observer this morning, where it was so much hoop jumping. Well, I mean, Samsung needed to put a crappy selfie camera on the inside of the Fold, and there's just no way that they could bundle the accessories to make it more like a Note, because no one would want to buy all of the Note accessories unless they really wanted to. So it's good that Samsung is piecemealing this out, and it has to be. And again, literally anytime I was hearing these kinds of justifications for what Samsung had to do, I just, every single reviewer in there, I mentally swapped out the name Samsung and put in OnePlus, or swapped out the name Samsung and put in LG, and could literally think of videos and reviews where they've like, this is a half-baked feature. There's no way anyone should ever pay for something that's not fully fleshed out Generation 4. But then here they are. Well, no, it's really good that they put this technology in the Fold 3, because that's the only way it's going to get refined. So, it's really the best of the compromises you could have had. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And I think it's almost like talking from both sides of your mouth, really, to a certain point. And
it is. But again, that's what I mean is we talk about price and value. There's all of this goalpost moving where Samsung is allowed to charge you out the wazoo for kind of a watered down version of this idea. It actually has
it has a smaller battery than the Z Fold 2. The improvements that we saw realistically,
and a thirstier CPU.
And absolutely, and they went with the 888 which again we understood. So Note 88 Plus, which again doesn't make a big difference for us. What I came out of the Unpacked event with, I was a little bit like, I love the introduction. I love the fact that they showed off the watch, because I wanted to see more about what the watch is.
Well, and they actually got into it, because I felt like the phones were so shallow, and they actually took some time to talk about the watch.
And it was very much like they dove into it. They gave us all the details. And then when it came down to the Fold, it was very almost like top level, like they shifted approach to like, okay, we're going to hit the high points now. Um, I don't. I wanted to say that I'm getting somewhat of the same feeling of how the S21 was to a certain point at the announcement. It feels like this year's is, although it has some improvements in areas, it still is somewhat of a downgrade from last year to a certain point. The size, the shape, everything pretty much the same. I mean, yes, we get 120 hertz on both displays. That's great, which I think people will appreciate. But it was really more about, I feel like they were trying to go specifically for a soundbite. This year's foldables from Samsung are cheaper.
Exactly.
And I think that's literally
and
the
it feels
big
really
soundbite.
cynical. Yeah.
And I think that's what they want people to say, and we want that to kind of ever so permeate through the conversations that they are cheaper. But then I don't think they really counted on the fact that the Z Flip actually looks really good at that right around the price point with the improvements that they've done. The IPX rating, I think, is the biggest thing that drove me crazy with the Z Fold 2. I couldn't take it anywhere. Like, seriously, we would go to events, like not events, but we went to Magic Mountain and we would go to the beach.
I made this point in one of my conversations, and please tell me if you think I'm off base here, but I like to go down to the beach. I'm a straight shot down to Malibu.
I was about to say, we live in Cali. Yeah.
But if I have a Fold, that means I also need another phone that I can take places. And again, for someone like me, I would be golden with like a Pixel 3a as my beach communicator phone. Brilliant camera. I can take, photos and videos of Lex out at the ocean. And I'd be fine beating up a 2-year-old $300 phone. I mean, I would be fine, but I would need it. There is no way from the limited time that I've spent with the Fold 2, there is no way a Fold could survive one of our beach trips hanging out all day on the sand.
No, and that was my biggest concern with that. And that's, like I said, that part I was appreciative, but there was a big caveat under that statement where it says IPX8, no pool and no salt water. So essentially what they're saying is, if you are at home and you happen to splash some water on it, that's about the extent of it. Or if you're outdoors and it rains on you a little bit, you're okay. But don't go to the beach. Don't go to the pool. This is not, and it is not dust resistant. It's purely water. So
X8.
X8, yeah, exactly. So, and don't get me wrong, I understand, and I think people wanted some water resistance, and the fact that they did it is good. But
it's great.
It's not like it's not like the, oh my god, it's like the discovery of sliced bread kind of thing. I saw the announcement. I was again. I think the S Pen was a little bit of a. I mean, I understood how it's designed, but the S Pen Pro was a little bit of a letdown. It turned out to be so massive. I don't know why I didn't think it was that big of an S Pen in the announcement in January. Do you remember it being that much like a?
It's like a charcoal.
It's like an Apple. It's like an Apple Pencil full size. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so I felt more confused when I came out of it. But I was really excited for the S Pen. Realistically, I actually wanted to see what the Pro would do, because those are some of the functions. But the sheer size of the Pro, the S Pen, that it becomes unusable. It's not a portable solution. You do not take that with you just to have Bluetooth connectivity to do trigger pictures, as opposed to what the Note does. So, anyways,
hold on. Let me just pull out my yardstick.
No, exactly, honey. Hold on a second. I'm gonna push the button from here. Hold on a second.
I could just point with the S Pen from here and touch the shutter button on the camera.
Or you could just go to good old classic. Just raise your hand, show the palm.
3D. It's old SCTV gags because I'm ancient. Yeah. I'm walking away from this event, and I really appreciated what they had to say about the watch, new fitness tracking features, ECG. This new body mapping, these biosensors that are going into the watch. I'm getting really excited, and I'm not huge into fitness trackers.
I got worried a little bit when they said shock, a very minor electrical shock.
Yeah. Huh? Wow. I mean, you really got to be a Samsung fan, I guess. But getting out of that announcement and then finding that ECG and the body electro sensors. Only going to work if you're on a Galaxy phone. You can't pair those features with any other watch. And there was another, I think Android Authority put this out. Steve DeRoche shared it in the Discord, that the Galaxy Watch 4 is only going to have one assistant, and it's not going to be Google Assistant, which I have zero interest in interacting with Bixby on my watch.
I missed that part. So they literally they made Android Wear Tizen.
Yeah,
because I was about to say the look and the feel of everything. Yeah. They literally skinned Android Wear to the point where it doesn't even look like Android Wear.
If we're gonna skin Wear OS, I like the strategy from Mobvoi better.
Yeah,
the customizations are more minor. I mean, if you go into like the Wear OS subreddit, you can see all these people like de-Mobvoying their watches to improve battery life and improve performance and free up extra storage. And I get it. But some of those Mobvoi applets I genuinely do like. So I've been reluctant to wipe it all out. But those customizations are so much less pervasive than what Samsung is about to do to Wear OS. My Mobvoi watch works on every phone. I don't need to install additional. I mean, it benefits from installing the Mobvoi tracker, but I can just do Wear OS if I just want to go Wear OS. It doesn't matter what phone. And they don't lock up functionality by only letting you pair that with certain phones. So as soon as I also saw that they were going to switch to Bixby, I that was the last little bit of interest that I had in Galaxy Watch 4 that just sort of evaporated.
So I saw the Bixby conversation when it came down to the flip and the fold, but I did not see that it was going to be locked down to that. Okay, that's a game changer though. That for anybody that was a Wear OS or Android Wear fan that was like, okay, we're happy now that Tizen's going away. I think really Tizen isn't going away. Tizen just became a skin.
Well, and especially, have you played with some of the new updates like Google Pay, Google the new applet on the watch?
I typically don't use the watch. I use the phone, so I do Google Pay, but I don't
use it a whole lot either. I mean, again, ever since we lost MagStripe, I haven't done a lot of phone payments.
Unfortunately, it's been a downhill for it.
But weird. I did fire it up. It's cleaner. It looks sharper. It looks like a modern app, not like an old bastardized Wear OS applet. We now got better support for additional apps, cards. So that card interface, now more apps can contribute to cards. The new Spotify app is really solid. I mean, like, I'm already on the sort of the next gen hardware. You know, TicWatch E3 and TicWatch Pro 3.
Yeah, I think this is
these little glimpses of what Wear OS 3 is going to be like.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to load it up on the 3 Pro. Yeah, for sure.
It's already encouraging me that life outside the Galaxy Watch ecosystem is probably going to be fine. I was impressed by the price, but the price only makes sense when you also combine it with a Galaxy phone and you're good with Bixby. And those are two deal breakers for me, that this $250 starting price is incredible. And if you're on a Galaxy and you want the right complement for your phone, I don't feel bad recommending it. But to me, this doesn't feel like Wear OS, the ecosystem, is going to be getting better. It still feels like Samsung is trying to staple shut an ecosystem a la Apple.
And it is. So, I mean, it was a very weird, like I said, my understanding, or at least my views of it, I realized they were going to skin some of it, but I didn't realize this was going to be to the point where it looks nothing like where it was, where it's going to look like on any other smartwatch coming out with Wear OS or Android.
Well, and I love some of the close-up images where the Samsung app drawer is basically just a ripoff of the Apple Watch circles. And you're like, please, Samsung, could you show us more how you're just slobbering over any idea that Apple has?
They want to make it so similar to try to entice people to switch to them from Apple.
And that's never gonna happen.
And it's not. Yeah, it's whoever is in the Apple camp is not going to switch to Samsung camp based on icons and shapes. It's an ecosystem. Both of them are building walled gardens to basically incorporate their own ecosystems and make you dependent on their systems. So, short answer, it was a confusing impact. Let's just say that. And I was, I mean, like I said, I wasn't expecting a lot. A lot of the information was like leaked to heaven kind of thing. But that was, so like there's some more things coming up. Like I said, the Bixby thing that now makes me kind of like rethink about because I did actually order the Galaxy Watch because I was looking forward to seeing how it works. And to be honest, automation on Google Assistant from the watch are one of my best features. I switch it on and I turn on lights, turn off lights. I don't want, my hands are dirty. I just call out the assistant and talk to it. And so I'm not going to say that it's going to be impossible, but I'm hoping at some point there'll be some exploit that allows us to switch it. I mean, that's going to, if I do stick with it, that'll be one of my first things I want to do. See how I can switch it back to Android, to the Google Assistant, or how to reinstall the Assistant APKs.
I think it's hilarious, but watching those conversations play out, like, well, you just connect your watch and you do this and you fire up some ADB commands and then you can make the watch normal.
And the Assistant can be, and then you could suddenly
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. You just got to, like an archaeologist, you got to just brush away all of the
I would imagine that. I don't think they totally ripped it out. I think they probably disabled it more than likely, but we'll have to see. Yeah.
But to all of that, it's funny. Like, I thought the part of the presentation for Unpacked that was the most infuriating was the listen up, ladies. You like style and fashion and taking TikTok videos outside your coffee shop. So this phone comes in pink. And the farther I get away from it, and especially thinking back to some of our conversations, like with Issa, while it rings hollow and disingenuous and cynical from a mega corporation like Samsung, I feel like the Z Flip actually lands what Samsung is marketing. I don't believe the Z Fold in any way they could demonstrate any of the benefits of what the Z Fold can do. Your videos on the Z Fold 2 showed me so much more potential, functionality, high tier laptop grade use for a product that costs more than most people's laptops. So I get it. But if I had watched Samsung Unpacked, I'd have walked away thinking these guys are idiots. Oh, have you ever watched a YouTube video and you wanted to buy one of the products from the YouTube video? You have to close the video to open up an online marketplace. And you're like, what is this? 2005? Are you mad?
They were. It's seriously. This is the story of they were grasping at straws. They didn't know what to cover. Really,
so we've dumbed this down to such a tier. But you also have a $2,000 phone. So show me $2,000 worth of use, and I'm on board. But that's not what we really got. We got watered down cameras. We got a smaller battery. We've got a more fragile device than like some of our more rugged options or just normal glass on glass slab phones. Yeah. But the Z Flip, I feel, does a much better job of mitigating those compromises. And it fits into my brain. Like, again, I'm plugging one of my own videos here, but I'm so tired of talking about phones by price. I want to talk about phones by feature set. And to me, a clamshell compact style folding phone is kind of a great solution for a communicator device. It's like a premium version of what I would turn to for a Pixel 4a or like an iPhone SE, something that changes up the form factor, fits in a woman's pair of pants pockets, which are practically non-functional. I don't know why women don't get real pockets on their pants, but this could clip to that in a really cute way that would still be accessible and would be a different way to fulfill phone calls, video calls, messaging, texting, instant messaging in a way that's more practical. Like I do actually see the benefit there.
Yeah.
And it's so much more familiar. Consumers already understand candy bar form factor. So when you open it, it's just like a regular phone. This makes sense in my brain.
Oh, and they gave it stereo speakers finally. They discovered that people like stereo.
I mean, again, I'm not going to hit that too hard because I didn't trash the Duo for only having a mono speaker. But no, seriously, like those little touches and considerations, and that is absolutely not a phone for me. The Z Flip,
don't get me wrong. Yeah, I bought this. So the first Z Flip, I never bought the 5G.
Way.
I did the first one, and every time I put it in my phone in my pocket, I could just like every time I needed to use it, I would have to be like digging down because obviously the opposite of what the women for obviously having problems with not existing pockets, we have deep pockets in the front. So having that go in the pocket and not having anything else with it because I don't.
And it's kind of a lump because it is thick.
Yeah. It is. It still does.
It's two phones.
It still has the same thickness. Yeah, it's a Z Fold. With cut this in half and make
cut
it
into a cute little square.
And so don't get me wrong, I can totally see this the customer base of who is the customer that they're shooting for. And I'm sure that there's obviously some guys there that will also like something that is not as bulky.
Sorry, I just saw Michael's comment. Juan's talking about how it can pocket now. You nerd. I love it.
Touché, Monsieur Michael. Touché.
Oh, no.
And with that, everybody, thank you very much
for the show. I don't know if we can top that.
I don't think there is anything we could do at this point. From this level, it's downhill. So just for your reference, guys, this is it.
Yeah. So again, it's weird. I feel weird at the end of this Unpacked because the product I was going into kind of with the most skepticism is the one that I'm now feeling the strongest in this mission of actually catering to mainstream consumers. The Fold should never be a mainstream conversation. The Fold should be a balls to the wall tech aspiration,
as it was initially intended with the first Fold and the second Fold upgrading the first one.
For sure.
The third one should have been an evolutionary upgrade.
And it feels like watering it down.
And I don't understand though why. This is the weird. And then not only that, okay, so the S Pen functionality, I for some reason I was like almost 100% sure they were going to give it to the external display, and then I was hoping for the internal display, and it turned out to be that it was only for the internal display and not the external one.
Yeah,
and I felt like that's a missed opportunity. I was like, why would you not give it the S Pen functionality to the front? You have it's not like you don't have technology that you've done. This is totally a la Note, a la S21 Ultra, use a capacitive, responsive display on the outside and allow us to take notes with the phone closed, allow us to do it whenever.
If LG can put a digitizer into the Stylo 6,
come
on. I bought that phone for $145 before
That's what I'm saying.
tax.
At the price point that they said, it was just, so yeah. It was
and come on, the Stylo 6, I mean, I know it has its fans out there, but it was kind of a joke. But it had a real digitizer.
It has a digitizer. You had a pen. You could actually use a pen with it.
You could.
And then this is the weird, and then you get $1,700, $1,800 and you're like, yeah, you're going to have to carry that with an extra case, or you're going to have to carry the long stick to reach.
Here's where I'm going to take Fold more seriously. And I doubt it's going to happen anytime soon. But I want a 700 series processor in there.
Okay. And they could. There's no reason that they wouldn't be able to
kick the storage down to 128 gig. You can keep the cameras because those cameras are already on Samsung's mid-ranger phones. And give me a Galaxy A Fold. Give me the first Galaxy A that takes us up to $999. We're already in that up to $700 price tier for the A72. Aren't we kind of closing in on that, or is that $599?
The A72 is $599. It's cheap.
$599. Okay, but still, I mean, you can whittle back so much more. You don't have to worry about cannibalizing this higher tier, but put this folding screen and hinge. You don't even have to have the over-engineered water resistance, although they probably should. But give me the first Galaxy A at $999 as the folding tablet. And I don't care about the extra horsepower. I don't care. In fact, it would be even better because that smaller battery would last so much longer.
Absolutely, on a mid-ranger chipset. Exactly. This is where the compromise. This is the weird conversation. It's like you give me a Maserati, but you give me a smaller. You take the engine and you could just, or no, not the engine, and you give me a smaller gas tank.
Yeah.
But how does that? Have you not seen what your S21 series has been doing?
And I mean, come on, over this last year, in your metaphor there, it's like you gave us this hotter engine and you built a really crappy radiator for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no.
It's gonna melt down.
So for me, when I saw that, I felt like it was seriously a slightly tweaked version of the Z Fold 2, but the price was still up there. Also, there was another thing that was kind of very surprising. Their trading this year was for the first time was actually kind of crappy.
Oh yeah,
they were the trading values, they had
well, just like how LG phones would always go on fire sale 3 months after they came out. We knew that was going to be unsustainable, and Samsung trying to lock people into their ecosystem by upending the resale market and disrupting all of those prices, so you could only get more for your phone by going back to Samsung. Also, we had to know that was not going to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
You can do that for a couple of years, but after a point, you've got to let that go and hope that the momentum carries from people just not questioning how little their phones actually sell for now.
Well, if for anybody that was trading in a Fold that they purchased, like a Z Fold 2 from last year, they would see that they basically lost $1,200.
Oh, well, and consider the $2,000 price tag on anyone who held out on a Z Fold.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If they're still using,
because what they were offering something like $300. That's how little these things are actually worth because of how much damage Samsung has done to their own brand in devaluing their own products.
It's a very different conversation. For sure, a different conversation than what we had in 2020. But so it is what's going on. It's Unpacked, obviously, is one of the biggest thing that happened this week. But the other conversation I think that we were also talking about, and I'm going to try to slightly segue us away from this, if I think, unless there was anything else that you'd like to cover on with Unpacked.
Like OROD tech, and I just want to bring this up because the price conversation is always going to slide down.
Oh, absolutely.
So techies, we're kind of nefarious when it comes to trying to affix value. Like, this phone sold for $999, but it would really be worth it if it were $799. And you're like, out of nowhere, that's kind of the meaningful commentary. So this is kind of the reverse of it, what OROD is asking. Would your criticisms be the same if the phone was $1,300? And if the phone were exactly the same, full retail, $1,300, obviously we'd be having a different conversation. I wouldn't feel as bad about the number of compromises being made to things like
because it would make sense. It makes sense why they.
But here's the deal, and I'm sorry to cut you off because I just want to finish the whole thought. Our premium tier tech is kind of the niche incubation zone for new technologies that will eventually trickle down into more mainstream products. So you can't really kick off the sale of a phone with a hinge, a Wing, a Motorola Razr, a Z Flip, a Z Fold, Huawei, Mi Mix. You can't undercut that. The engineering and R&D that goes into making a pocketable computer that can bend or fold or has a periscoping camera or movable parts, that is going to add a substantial amount of money to your manufacturing costs. I kind of put it at like $600 to $800. As soon as any hinge is on that phone, take a normal phone and add $600, add $800. That's what this stuff really does cost. So if companies aren't making money on that R&D investment at the premium tier, turning in some kind of profit, then we don't get to push as aggressively with newer technologies. I'll wait until it's a fire sale. That's cool. I'm not telling anybody they've got to put themselves out. I'm not telling anyone to spend irresponsibly. But if these technologies can't stand on their own without just selling off old stock as it devalues, we don't get better competition. Smaller companies aren't even going to bother. They're never going to appeal to us as enthusiasts at the high tier, and we might as well give up. I mean, the sector is dead. So I'm sorry, that was a really long-winded way to kind of come back around and say, well, like, obviously, yes, if Samsung had launched the Fold at $1,300, I think our commentary would be very different. But I also don't think that that's feasible. I feel like this phone is going to be half off in about 4 months, just like the Fold 2 dropped to $1,000 while Samsung was trying to get rid of the pent-up stock that they had produced. But they count on the people doing pre-order to kind of fulfill the full profit margin so that those phones can exist in the first place. And that's how upside down our phone market is. The margins are built into the first 2 weeks. And then after that, we're going to start seeing sales or BOGOs or better trade-ins or something that's going to try and entice. And then 4 months from now, Samsung has done so much damage to the sort of longevity of these products that we'll probably see a Z Fold 3 at $999, sometime early next year.
I wouldn't be surprised, and I think it's the same story that happened with the S21 Ultra. Literally within 3 weeks of announcing or launching it, it dropped $1,000 because they
First
realized
price cut 3 weeks. Screw you if you pre-ordered. You got burned.
I feel like he's talking to me somehow, but I don't understand what he's saying.
Well, see, I mean, the thing is, we're gonna have a really warped perspective on this because we're gadget reviewers.
Oh no, don't get me wrong.
I genuinely mean those people who got lit up, got a new phone. I know all the hate that I got on my Galaxy S21 video saying that I don't think this is a good buy. I don't think you should buy the S21. People take offense to that because it feels like a personal attack. Like, you made a poor purchasing decision and you should feel bad. We jump onto these things because we're silly and we make videos on YouTube. But the reality of it
is a business. We need to kind of explain it. For me, this is a business expense, and it's not something that,
and it's my hobby.
It is, absolutely, and I'm not hurting anybody by doing it. So again, if anybody's going to be dealing with it, it's me. So,
but that's also
when you were talking directly at me. But
it's the same lesson. Like, I've been tweeting this out as a joke. Like, have you learned nothing from LG? Never buy at it, pre-order. Because if you're one of these mainstream consumers, you have to know by now Samsung's gonna cut the prices. Can you hold out a month? It's still brand spanking new and top of the line a month later, and you'll probably save $200. Like, it seems like a good trade-off.
I think it's more and more becoming a conversation, and I felt like as a last little teaser, I was very intrigued to see that OnePlus decided to troll Samsung on their own game the day before. That was that little LG wing / or the two, buy two OnePluses for the OnePlus 9s and still get better deals than as opposed to a foldable.
So I felt silly because during the broadcast I actually took it legit. Like, I was hoping what we were going to see was like concept 2. I was hoping we were going to see a OnePlus dual display concept. And you're like, oh, that could be interesting. What could they do? They have so much that they need to catch up on for software, blah, 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 blah. And then who was it? Mateo, who was on the show with me, who I was so tickled because the GOAT episodes of All About Android are my absolute favorite. I was having a hard time not like nerding out all over him whenever we would talk. He was like, yeah, I think it's just a troll. And then like it immediately clicked in my brain. Oh my gosh, I totally fell for it. I totally took that legit, and I should not have. I am clown.
No, it's because honestly though, if it was a true thing, if it was truly a product that they were,
I wanted to see what their take on it would have been.
Absolutely, and for me, the only thing I did is when I first saw it, I kept looking and looking and looking, and the thing that stood out to me the most was that the graphic representation on both displays were not connected. Like, the graphic doesn't transition from one to the other. They were all folding. They were going on into themselves. It's almost like the video flipped. So I kept looking and looking, and at that point, I felt like, I feel like this is OnePlus going back to their old ways of like, nudge. We'll do it.
It was a little juvenile.
It is. But you know what? It got people talking about it, so I feel like
we've got Josh in the chat too. He says, I emailed OnePlus. What's that about? I got. I wanted it, and especially dual display, because I feel like that's a woefully undersung competitor for this idea.
Absolutely. And OnePlus devices support external displays, which also helps the conversation. You saw the clues, you saw the little pieces, and it was something that we could connect. So it's one of those. It was, don't get me wrong, I was very hopeful as well, and then I started kind of like deep looking, and I was like, nah, you're playing with me, OnePlus. See, I didn't go as far as emailing OnePlus. I just said, let's just ride it, we'll see how it goes. But yes, nice to see Josh in the chat. Josh, say hi to Isa for us as well. Isa's apparently Isa's in town for the last couple of weeks, so it's very nice to see Josh and Isa hanging out together again. So with that, I wanted to talk about a little bit about some of the other content that you kind of put out this week. You talked a little, you covered the subject that we talked about last week, where we were talking about the DACs. Obviously, we're talking about the Helm, we're talking about the THX one. And just for reference, guys, we're still working on that. We're going
to have a challenge. We're shooting for hopefully in the next couple of weeks to try to do an in-person
and we'll try to kick off the challenge that way as well. So with that being said, I saw that you put out like a, basically how to pick out the right DAC, or basically how to DAC, or do you need to DAC, or do you DAC, bro, kind of thing.
Do you DAC, bro? Do you even DAC, bro?
That's how it should be, bro.
That's actually a much better title than what I came up with for my article. So yes, that's what I should have done.
Should have been. So for me, actually, you're right. It is actually something that people don't realize, that you do need to pick the right piece of hardware for what you need and what you're going to use it for. It's not something that's kind of like a one solution fits everything. And
because tell me, you've seen a bunch of these articles too, where it's like, hey, do you want to listen to Apple Music lossless? Buy this one cable DAC.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit more to consider there.
And well, not only that, you need to understand what you're doing, how to access it, and also the fact that it's not just the cable that magically converts everything. You need a nice pair of earbuds or headphones that you're using with it. It's a package. It's a conversation. Lossless audio or higher quality audio needs to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about just a higher quality or higher fidelity version of a trance or a dance song. We're talking actual, classical music, acoustics, and so on. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it is a hard thing to explain. How do you justify one piece of hardware over another? Like a Q3 over a THX or over a Helm. How would you be able to kind of go about that conversation? Because I feel like, Holy Windows in Heaven, this is weird. We do change the conversations quite quickly here. But yeah, no, if you could maybe just talk a little bit about the
once you flack, you never go back.
Oh,
Aditya, that's dirty. I love it.
Oh my
God. I hate that I love it, but I love it and I hate it.
Okay, and I'm sorry about this one. Once you flack, you okay.
So
we will never get monetized on this channel.
Nope, we're done.
Say that. I think YouTube pretty much just checked the box and says, nope, never happened, never again.
So the main thing, again, because I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that I'm ridiculously long-winded, I turned an article about bokeh into my photography book. Like I just kept writing, and I would say, like, well, if you're going to learn about this, then I also need to explain, aperture. And if I explain aperture, well, then we need to break down like manual. And it turned into a book. Like 10,000 words later, I was like, oh no, this can't be anything other than a book.
I agree.
So I really struggled because I was going to start with like kind of a showdown or an editorial about Bluetooth versus cabled connections in an age of higher quality streaming. Yeah. Amazon Music HD, Spotify will eventually launch their hi-fi service for premium, Apple Music, lossless and spatial audio, Tidal Masters, Qobuz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it started out as like a whole series of videos that I was going to be making. And really at that point, I was like, you know what, there's kind of a thesis statement that I'm missing. And if someone were to come up to me today and they actually did have an interest in consuming higher quality audio, I actually feel a little bit more comfortable recommending the starter purchase as a nicer USB DAC.
Yeah.
If you get nicer headphones and you plug them into an inadequate player, you're not going to get much for that nicer headphone investment. If you start with a more kind of consumery laptop stapled to your motherboard DAC and some cheap disposable earbuds, but then you try and do lossless streaming, you're really not going to hear all of that data. It's going to get, transcoded. It's going to get compressed. It's going to get squashed. You're not going to get lossless. So really, to me, the first step should be getting something that can properly reproduce the data that audio file contains, and has better electrical hardware to put out the power that will drive your headphones, because then you're properly representing the audio that you're consuming. And even on lesser headphones, like cheap earbuds, more mainstream or consumer cans, putting a good amp behind that hardware will still deliver, I think, a little bit more color and clarity and be a better performer. So I really genuinely do believe that you start with that for your mobile audiophile experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you build and you get higher quality audiophiles and you get better headphones, you can just keep growing from there. And I think that's the best way to kind of maximize that, while also starting out, acknowledging that this should be a journey that you take baby steps with, not I'm going to go straight to those $4,500 electrostatics that I got to listen to at Odyssey's headquarters.
Yeah,
you don't start there.
No, but and I think also the conversation could be had where this you're basically complementing your collection. So having a the USB DAC or USB-C DAC type of experience, and then adding like a Q3 to that, or a Bluetooth DAC, those become different tools that you're able to use, and you can actually enjoy them on different systems. Having just a one little piece, like for me right now, the Q3 is more of my PC experience because of the fact that it's a bigger piece, and it typically just, I don't like, band-aiding or, rubber banding the whole thing in there, which it just makes it look funny and makes the thing even thicker than it needs to be. Like I told you, the helm with the N200, a $200 phone with the helm, which is about $100. Literally one of the cheapest ways you could actually jump on, and you can probably go with an N10 or even last year's generation. They could still handle it because the horsepower, you're getting that assistant.
I mean, phone's way weaker than N10s.
Absolutely.
I mean, way weaker than N10s can benefit from that. So absolutely. When we're putting some of those pieces together, like I had to shout out the Rhodium. That's a $50 DAC. For me right now, because my sound card is still busted and I'm waiting on Focusrite to send me some kind of replacement, I'm using the little Apogee Groove that I just revisited. Like this thing's 4 years old, and it's got a quad sum ESS DAC and a huge amp. So again, it's like I have a V60 that is just for my PC. Exactly. And I'm going to use something else to power my microphone. I don't need to worry about a headset mic on this because it's not really what it's for. Yeah. So the article, I tried to break down, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What kind of pros and cons are you willing to live with? Because the Q3 absolutely represents some compromises when it comes to size, having another gadget to charge, but it brings some pretty phenomenal capabilities for that extra size. So there are some people who are going to want to take that out and about. They'll use the rubber bands that come with it to like stick it to a phone. But I know that's not for everybody. So it couldn't be, to me, here's the one thing you need to buy to listen to Apple Music lossless. The article is long because it's basically 4 small chapters. Cable DACs, battery powered DACs, hybrid DACs, and standalone players. And these are the different kind of strategies that we can employ to improve audio playback. But I'm kind of kicking myself. Like I should have also included old LG, like buy a V30 or a V40
for $350 right now. And then
I mean, like what, a G8 can be found for like $150 used in decent condition. Like you can do real well there.
You absolutely could do very, very well. And I think the biggest thing for the Q3 realistically for me, which surprisingly the helm had no issues with, was it worked on Samsung devices for me. The helm worked, but the Q3 will not work. Samsung does not communicate with Q3. It's like, thank you, move on. So that's why I kept, like I said, for me, for the size, but I could totally see somebody that truly like enjoys the audio sitting somewhere at a cafe or something with the phone, with the Q3, rubber band to it, and just enjoying music. So
and I think that also kind of plays into a part of the conversation that I hope to explore, because I am going to get into headphones to kind of complement some of my 2020 hearing videos. But again, it's like we need to keep drilling this idea in because of how lazy the headlines are, where it's not, I bought headphones that are gooder than these other headphones, and now I'm good because I have the gooder headphones. It's, what is it that you're trying to do, and where are you trying to do it? And if you don't have the right tool, you're not going to have a satisfactory experience. And to me, this is like, do you spend $600 on one pair of Bluetooth cans, but then you can't really take them to the gym? You probably won't want to use them outside. The noise cancellation might be kind of dangerous if you need situational awareness. Whereas instead, if we took that $600 and we kind of broke it up, you would have better audio solutions for different environments and for different needs. And so that's why I've been just so so beautifully impressed with these dongle DACs that are a lot more discreet. They can plug into a phone. They don't take up as much space in a pocket. And
they're in line with your headset. This is seriously the best part. In line, and you just plug it in. Yeah.
I do have some concerns about putting extra wear and tear on our USB ports, but
and the actual connectors themselves, even on the dongle,
they'll eat up a little extra battery and they get kind of warm. But a $50 to $100 dongle DAC, you could get. So I mean, consider $600 premium Bluetooth cans. I could buy a FIO BTR5. That's about $100 and have a Bluetooth or cabled DAC, which also has a balanced input if you want to get real fancy with your earbuds. I could complement that with your Bolt and have a cabled dongle DAC. I could buy a couple really decent pairs of IEMs and probably still eke out a good pair of mixing style cans. And literally cover workouts in a gym, workouts outside, casual listening, nice higher quality sit down, focus on your music listening, and soundtracking just other things around the house with some solutions that'll be really good for taking phone calls and video calls. And I'll have wired and wireless options to fulfill all of that. I mean, that's the economy that we're working with. If you do just that little bit of education and legwork, the casual purchase of one really expensive Bluetooth headset can go really far if you piecemeal it out and you really think about the individual circumstances you're going to be in. And I think you will actually end up with a higher quality music listening experience at the completion of all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's literally the thing is, I think it's a product awareness. I think a lot of people are not aware that
none of these companies have the marketing budget of Apple.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not in front of you all the time, and you're not sitting in there. But then you get companies like Apple's throwing the word lossless, and then you realize that none of your hardware can technically support it yet.
Nope.
And you need to actually rely on these companies to be able to provide you that experience. So that's really why I was excited about the Helm. For the Helm to work on an iPhone, it needs an adapter, and it also needs to, it's an additional cost, but there are ways. But it ends up becoming a daisy chain of adapter. There's the adapter, so silly, it's a weird conversation. But you owe it to yourself. The reality is, you owe it to yourself to enjoy the music, enjoy the content that you have. There's a time and place for any type of music or soundtrack. EDM, dance, and rock, and all of that. There's no question. Sometimes you just want a bass heavy sound experience, and the true wireless buds that are tuned that way that will work perfectly fine. Like the earphones are definitely good in their own right, in their own price.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about that on the Discord again today. So again, cut out what, $50 in your.
They're running $40 right now. They've been running for $40 for the last 2 weeks or so.
For the ANC? Seriously, they're 40?
The earphone, no, the earphone 2, the earphone
3 2. Okay. Sorry. So I was talking about the pros. We were talking about the pros on the Discord. And again, I still want to say they're like $50.
Even there, that's actually a ridiculously good price. I mean, think about it.
That's huge. I mean, like low latency aptX with active noise canceling and wireless charging in the case.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can compromise a little on the most beautifulest audio quality, playback, however the drivers are tuned, blah, 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 blah. These are your soundtracking buds. Yeah. And it's like less than a tenth the price.
But that's what I'm saying. There are so many options, and things like these. Watching stuff like on El Jefe's channel and covering all of those content, and I feel like it's my collection of wireless buds is still growing. I mean, from the last time you and I talked, I got 3 more. So
nice.
I feel like I need more ears. That's all I can say. I feel like I just need more ears, and I think I can.
It's tough. I mean, like, I go through these cycles where I just crank a bunch of audio gear, and then I've got to back off because the critical listening to verify to myself that I really am hearing what I think I'm hearing. It's so easy to burn my ears out. And especially just with like some of the hearing loss I already know I have, some of the wear and tear that I put on my ears. I used to have a lot of ear infections when I was a kid. I've got psoriasis, so I've regularly got scar tissue that kind of accumulates in the ear canals. It's like I'll have to like I'll jam and I'll be all into it and like I'm doing this and I'm listening to that and then like, oh, I can't hear things anymore. So I've been listening at things for so long, I got to take a break. And I wish I were better at pacing myself out a little bit more.
It's like anything. You need to kind of moderate to a certain level because hearing is one of those things that you cannot recoup by just taking a break from it. Then once damage is done, the damage is done. It's one of those things. Yeah. And as you get older, obviously things are not the same.
But this is also why I'm so excited for some of the things that you've been trying out recently, because you know, I'm seeing you wearing those DT770s. I know some of the products that you're going to be playing with. And it moves beyond just like, I need something that's going to cut the engine noise when I'm on an airplane. I really do feel that the people who take the time to invest a little bit of their own education into audiophile and just, I mean, premium tier audio gear. I really hate it when techies are like, I'll spend $600 on headphones, but I'm not one of those stinky audiophiles. No. And you're like, yar. But it helps your audience feel better about you not being an enthusiast in better audio, I guess. Like
because you're an average user at that point. Yeah, you're able
to. Average consumers don't spend $600 on headphones.
No,
I'm going to start turning into like Lewis Black and like doing weird finger pointing and stuff.
You just need the glasses, though. You need the drop.
But I think the corollary to the journey that you're actually on right now, and what gets me so lit up about this stuff is, once you do, you know, it's kind of like when you go on a diet and you learn a little bit more about what's in your food. Once you do take the time to kind of critically listen to some of these different products and what they do and how they color sound and reproduce sound and articulate sound, I think you're so much more aware of how you treat your ears. It just naturally seems to correlate. Like, I'm not impressed by ultra loud like I used to be.
There's no reason to listen to things. Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm properly getting all of the color and clarity and tone. And I also appreciate like, well, that's for when I'm at night after Lex has gone to bed and I just want to jam an album, or I want to go back and revisit something, or I want those memories from when I was in high school. And the first time I put on, you know, Dark Side of the Moon, you're like, that's the gig.
Yeah.
But along the way, you know, without really thinking about it, I'm listening way healthier than I used to when I had cheap, crappy headphones and I just cranked the volume and I would just rock out. This is so cool. They don't do that anymore because a part of this is also appreciating what it is that these products are doing.
It's like waking up once you start realizing that there's no need to boost the audio to 100%. Like seriously, at 29 to 32 is roughly where I sit in on my PC, on my Q3. And if I need anything, I adjust it, but it's there. The audio, the sound. The DT770s do a great job for isolation because they sit over, not on. So you don't get that fatigue with the ears. You get that nice, comfortable cushioning that's on the side. And then you can seriously, like I edit videos and I go through calls and meetings and so on. And like I said, we live stream whenever we're doing our shows. You know, when I was running the show this morning, when I was in meetings, my Zoom meeting, my WebEx, all of those things are run with the DT770s because I want to make sure that I'm listening to the person the correct way and I don't have to, you know, just to be able to get
enough of a passive noise cancellation cup without clamping your head in a vice.
Absolutely, because it's enough for me to hear somebody knock on the door or Omar coming in. Yeah.
If I'm out on location, I need my Sennheiser HD25s.
Yeah,
because that had that weird split headband, and when you would open that headband, they would smash your ears into the side of your head. But like, it's because I'm doing location mixing. It's because I need to hear the airplane that's like miles away that's going to cut through this take, and I need to be able to hear the actor that's like mumbling.
You're transforming the microphone or the audio source
it's in my brain.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason why it's so It's I know you're like smashing my ears into my brain. It is. I totally agree. But that's the purpose of that
Right.
those cans. Those are the reason why you would wear them. You wouldn't do that at home when you want to watch, when you want to just listen.
Not comfy.
No,
Oh, no good.
no, and plus, I would imagine your wife at some point would be like, "Honey, your ears are disappearing. What happened?" Uh, it truly is. So yeah, once I started down this path, it became truly just the experience and I'm really hoping that we do start seeing some improvements in the Bluetooth earbuds technology, especially
Yeah.
with Snapdragon sound. Some of the improvements I want to start seeing higher fidelity true wireless. We have so much true wireless,
Yeah.
and ANC is now down to prices that are very affordable. So as you said, flagship features coming down to general consumer products, it's typically how we see it. I mean, remember ANC used to be such a weird, like you could only get it on the super high expensive models.
God, I remember when I first got the Nokia BH905s, and that was back like when the only other company that was even remotely consumer accessible was Bose, and people
Yeah.
freaking out. These are like $300 to $400 headphones. And I remember the very first time, because they had these teeny tiny little ear cups, like they were literally just the height and width of my ear, and they would kind of rest really really lovingly in these soft cushions like right on top of my head. The headband made me look like a Cyberman. I didn't like the look of it, or I mean the shape of it. And I flipped that little switch for ANC, and it legit like took away road noise. And these are, I want to say they were ballpark like 350 at the time, somewhere in that price tier. Which actually, you know, we account for inflation, they probably were more expensive than like AirPods Max. But I just remember the first time I clicked it on, it's like, this is something kind of special. This is kind of magic. So now to be able to pop in some ear fun at $50 and end up with something really good.
Oh yeah,
For
or
that
even
is,
Gary was jumping in also that he just picked up the Soundcore Liberty Air 2 Pros.
oh
Those
yeah,
sound really
they
good. The
sound
Air 2
real
Pros,
good.
like seriously, like one of the companies I've been a big fan of Soundcore and what they've done with
And
audio.
especially if you like a little rumble. I mean, again,
Absolutely,
it's
don't
usually
get me
not
wrong.
my favorite to really saturate the sub bass, but something about their tuning is very playful. And
But you could.
especially for like science fiction and action films,
Mhm.
I will repair my sound
That's
cores
yours, just to
to
get that.
anything. Is like, oh, what? Really, if I'm gonna watch Tron, yeah, I think I need the sound cores.
Yeah,
I'll pull them out just for
I
that.
need to feel that he was zooming right by my ear, right there, and that I should have ducked at that point
And
just
that,
to
like,
make
I can
sure.
kind of feel the ground shake as he
Yeah,
tries.
yeah. No, don't get me wrong. That's one of the reasons I like them. I like them very much for that specific reason. They're easy.
Agreed,
They have decent microphones actually on them, very nice
for
for
sure.
calls. So for phone calls and so on, I don't mind that they have typically long batteries, and they're more they're more my grab and go kind of thing without having to worry about too many pieces. So those are the
Mhm.
things. But it again it speaks to the conversation of we have a lot. It's truly a flooded market. Every company is making them. We need
Mhm.
to start seeing some innovation in the quality of the audio, not necessarily just
Yeah.
low latency for playing PUBG kind of a situation, or just
You know,
you know what I mean.
I think a number of these companies are fielding that. I mean,
Mhm.
seeing the
Oh,
tuning
I'm
on
sure they're
Pixel
probably
Buds A
working on.
series,
Yeah.
seeing one more. I still
Mhm.
don't think they get enough credit for the work they've done on
I finally
multi-drivers.
got an email from one more after all of these years, so I need to respond back. I didn't get a
Nice.
chance to respond back, so
That's
yeah, I'm hoping
great.
to get my hands on and truly experience, because I know you and El Jefe,
So
Jeff, have been talking
I
about them. So
I was a little lukewarm on their Comfo buds because they're kind of
mhm,
open ear AirPod style earbuds. And if I'm going to
mhm,
go open ear, I prefer going something like Pixel Buds, the way that it's kind of a hybrid of a vented in ear design.
mhm.
But I still think their true wireless ANC and their neckband,
Oh,
which is usually within arm's reach, but I don't know where I put their neckband. The dual driver sport neckband they have is
mhm,
still, I think, one of the most gloriously undersung audio heroes. The wind filter is insane. outside on a breezy day and you turn on ANC, but the wind is hitting the microphones and you can get that weird kind of artifacty distortion.
Yeah,
I don't know what magic they've got on their wind filter, but it's profound. And I was doing one of my night shoots out in Calabasas, and I was walking around and almost got run over by someone running a red light in the middle of an intersection, and I could not hear it because those earbuds were really good.
Doc, I didn't hear them coming. The buds were good. I don't know what to say.
I mean, I was horrified and imminently impressed.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like when you feel insulted.
It would have been a fine way to go because I wouldn't have agonized at all because I never would have heard it coming.
You wouldn't have, oh my god. Well, I'll have to see what they're thinking about when with the email. But I was just like, it was when I saw the email, the first thing is obviously I thought of you and thought of Jeff. So yes, although I have a lot, I do hope to get my hands on the One Mores. And oh, speaking of which, getting hands on, I think I mentioned to you earlier, or a few weeks ago, I'm trying to get my hands on the Nord 2.
Yeah,
finally showed up.
Oh, that's great.
It took like forever, but I just put it in. They sent this
fun,
crazy case. Like, anyways, I'm excited. I'm excited for the Nord 2. It's a little, obviously it's way over its prime and nobody's really probably looking to it. But I think to me, it was, I wanted to see MediaTek on a OnePlus, and especially the 1200 AI. I haven't actually had a chance to play with one. So looking forward to checking it out and, putting my SIM cards. I just got the box today and just put a short on YouTube just to kind of share with the casing. I'm like, anyways, I like OnePlus's designs. I think their design team is good. I just wish we'd get more concept phones. We want to go back into the land of concepts, like the Concept One and the Realme GT. I don't know if anybody ever saw the video I did on the Realme GT looks like the cousin of the Concept One.
Mm-hmm.
That the leather with the glass, with the black glass back on the back, just screams OnePlus design. Obviously, Realme is a sister company. Anyways, it was one of those things. So, but being that we talked about DACs, and again, please make sure to check out the article, Juan's article, if you guys are interested into. I don't know how to say this better than if you love to get ear candy, enjoying music in the right way. Mm-hmm. I cannot explain it except for the best way to describe it is if you were sitting in the forest and everything was quiet and peace and quiet, and you can suddenly hear everything and you're aware of every movement around you, the leaves, the everything around. That's the level of awareness when you do get a good DAC in between your audio source and your ear, and definitely a good pair of ear cans. And you do not need to boost the audio to overpower certain levels just to compensate. You truly enjoy the acoustics to the levels that they were intended, and you definitely it's you can hear the difference. It's not a gimmick. There's a big difference between standard AAC, whatever, if you're talking about like your regular buds, and when you go into music. And I've been testing them out, and again, the Helm has been great. So yeah, I'm very happy that our relationship has been taking me further down the rabbit hole of better audio.
It's good times
everywhere. It is absolutely.
And to the same token, I mean, that appreciation does extend for gaming and movies. And,
absolutely,
and other activities too. But
Call of Duty all the way. I actually used it.
But again, I mean, like I really enjoy how that conversation can branch. And again, it should be about satisfying your specific tastes. So hopefully in that DAC buying guide, there is some kind of a solution in there that you can consider that might help you take that next step or kind of spruce up what it is that you're trying to do.
Exactly. Absolutely. And with that being said, I think we need to kind of discuss a little bit about the conversation that kind of, I would say a good part of your show on Monday was pretty much focused on this specific.
It got real heavy.
It did. And I think it's because it's to a certain point, it is something that it's kind of a very big change. I mean, it's not something, and it's a tough subject to kind of explain because I loved how you explained it on Monday. The approach where a trust that was put into a company that was championing security, championing privacy, making sure that you understood that your content wasn't going anywhere, or that people couldn't get access to it, is being handled in a different way that you didn't necessarily think was the right was the way that it was being handled.
I don't think
with
so.
With the archiving, the data, metadata, the and I think you were talking also about the hash, how you basically validate data and so on. So I was actually very shocked because that totally slipped my mind. I did not see any of that information prior to watching your show on Monday. That was kind of like a big wave hitting me in the morning. Now, obviously, I don't use Apple products in the same way as some of the other people. Like,
they're not our mainstream.
They're not
our daily drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I have an iPhone, it's a day job work phone. That is not a phone I carry with me most of the time. It's mostly when during business hours. So
it's okay. I forgive you.
I've been meaning to apologize on that. Sorry. No, but in all seriousness though, this is a big change. And I think there's a lot of people that are not, I mean, obviously yourself are covering it, but a lot of people are not discussing the fact that this is impacting them without even realizing what's going on. Like to them, it's like, every day, woke up, had my coffee, take pictures, back up to iCloud, move on. And what I didn't understand, or at least figure out the concept, is what was the reasoning behind it? What was the rationale behind it? Was there any statements or any conversations on that end?
I mean, from what I've been reading up, there's lots of there's an internal memo that someone leaked on these Apple employees that are concerned about this, or this was because obviously we're talking about Apple's new approach for trying to combat abusive imagery and stem the spread of
scanning
human trafficking by scanning devices, not just cloud storage.
Yeah.
So it's difficult because I feel Apple's marketing machine is too savvy for that. Apple's marketing is going to put out won't someone think of the children? We're doing this for the children. We're protecting the children. That's the main call. And a part of this actually could help.
No, I understand that. Yeah, exactly.
But I think what's troubling, and I think why so many people are having these kind of conflicted reactions to this policy, or just seem so taken aback, is because this really wasn't on anyone's radar. It took us by surprise that Apple was going to aggressively change the sort of philosophy behind the way they talk about the iPhone. So much of their conversation since the San Bernardino incident has been about privacy and what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. And we're going to force other companies to play ball with disclosing permissions and making you choose to opt into their advertising. And then out of nowhere, seemingly, came this course correct on, we're going to open up a methodology of bypassing some of your encryption to scan the content on your device and compare it against records of established content that could be problematic or illegal. And we're also doing it with this aggressive AI platform that can kind of work around the way that we hash this imagery. It can kind of see when two images are similar based on this hashing data. I don't think we're ever going to get a good reason why this was the time for Apple to fight this kind of battle. But the cynic in me, this is just a feeling. I have no data or insider at Apple to confirm or deny anything that I'm about to speculate on. But I kind of feel like where smartphone sales have gone, for them to expand into any other markets, and especially in regions of the world where some of the governments might be a little less hospitable to Apple and some of their previous stances on privacy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you want to reach those remaining consumers and offer them products to buy, you need to play ball with some governments and policy that we would maybe find a bit distasteful here in North America.
Yeah.
And so if you can create a system where the iPhone is still technically secure and it's still technically encrypted, but the local law says you can't make funny images of your leaders.
I would exactly. That's what I was thinking.
If Apple's product was too good at keeping the local government out, then Apple would have a harder time selling their products in that region. But if Apple can offer those governments a system where Apple is never aware of what the hashes are, the government and the agencies responsible for their law enforcement give Apple a bucket of hash data. And then Apple says, it has all the plausible deniability to say, like, hey, if it's
we don't know what it is. Yeah, exactly.
We don't know. If it's a wacky meme of this dictator and they've decided that that's illegal, well, we're not the ones actually implementing that policy. We're not looking at those photos. We're just going to narc on any phones that have this imagery because the local government said that that was illegal. And we're just playing by local rules. And to me, again, I don't know it's that, but when you're trying to reach the last clumps of potential smartphone consumers, that would seem pretty lucrative. That would be a good perk to offer an area, a region, a government to say, this is how we can play ball, and we can still promote this notion of privacy and security, and people don't feel like this is compromised because we spent the last several years hyping up how secure iPhones are. But if you tell us something's illegal, we're not going to get in your way. We'll make sure to tell you if illegal things are happening on these devices.
On devices that we sold, that people paid money for, and that they're paying for service. None of this is a free service that could be misunderstood or misconstrued as, well, you're using a free Yahoo account, you should expect that all your emails there are being scanned. I'm like, I understand there's no such thing as free. This is a very different conversation. iCloud, to a certain point, or even devices that you buy from Apple, you are the owner of that hardware. You purchased it, or you're financing it, whichever way. It's like, seriously, it's like somebody coming in through and then looking through your photo albums at home and not asking you permission, and it's like, hey, that's a funny little is that baby naked? Yeah, okay, that's gonna be that's not gonna be good.
And so instead of rolling that out to Russia or China first, where then I think they would have a much harder narrative to fight potential human rights abuses, they're going to do it here. And one of the most plausible strategies for that would be to combat a truly reprehensible practice in the world of online media, these underground enclaves of absolutely reprehensible people that trade imagery of human trafficking and of just the most distasteful and abhorrent kinds of media. So again, I've had some really stark conversations with people in cybersecurity. I did an interview with one of the directors of ECPAT, a global organization that does really good work at combating again, abuse imagery. And obviously, therefore, Apple's policy, and I have to respectfully disagree, because I feel what gains can be made with this implementation of hashed, that means images that have already been created and shared in this database, I don't believe will do much to combat the creation of new imagery. And I feel there's too much potential for false positives and for this system to eventually later down the road be abused by people with different political motivations. I think it's only one step removed for this going to another region of the world where we would absolutely disagree with the policies of that local government being used to silence journalists, to fight dissidents, to further lock down or entrench those political ideologies with their populations, and make it more difficult for people to speak out against those kinds of regimes.
And the weird thing is that they're running it on your hard drive, on your hardware. They're using your own network connectivity. Like I said, it's a weird. It's not weird. It's just. I feel like it shouldn't even be allowed. This is the weird conversation. It's like,
I ultimately feel this is something we just shouldn't do.
No.
Again, I am kind of torn. Like, some kind of process or methodology for trying to root out those that would partake in these kinds of terrible endeavors. I feel like we should make it as unfashionable and as punitive and the punishments as ruthlessly brutal as we possibly could when we find those that create this imagery. But you know, this to me is a bad metaphor. When you're going after iPhone users, you're not going after the kingpins that are trying to create new imagery. You're going to get the person on a street corner, you know, with a joint. You're not going to get the you know, the mob boss that controls the majority of the human suffering in that area and
they're running all of it on their phone. This is just
right.
Yeah,
that person doesn't exist in this paradigm that Apple has created to root out potential images on individual consumers' phones. I just don't feel like those individuals are using iCloud. I don't feel like they're using iPhones to create and distribute and proliferate this kind of media. So to me, it just seems like so much work to throw away so much of the goodwill that Apple has built up in being the company that makes their phones more private and won't, you know, unlock an iPhone to satisfy the FBI. It's just troubling to me. I keep trying to see.
They wouldn't even have to unlock the phone, by the way. They would only have to basically point you in the direction of that phone.
Oh, no, but that's what I mean is like Apple was the company that refused to crack iPhone encryption for the FBI, and they built up a lot of credibility. I mean, it was one of the things I could always point to and say, like, I don't enjoy their products, but I very much respect the position they took on encryption in these types of cases. I think it's law enforcement's job to break the locks. It's not Apple's job to give them the key to everybody's phone. So the Apple doesn't do anything unless they can tangibly profit from it. And Apple always incorporates the widest of profit margins. Apple doesn't do anything at margin. Apple doesn't do anything out of some kind of altruistic notion. They are highly politically motivated to get in the way of policy that would affect their bottom line. If it's something like right to repair legislation, I keep looking at this policy thinking, why do you throw away this much goodwill? Why do you upset so many people in the security sector? Why do you potentially compromise some of the security of devices that are going to be in the hands of state and federal government employees who are issued these products as like their package?
This is the other part that I'm finding, like, at some point there has to be a little bit of a sticking point, because to a certain point they're going to be basically opening this up to people, because they did a very big there was a very big push at one point. I remember everybody started shifting from BlackBerry, when the decline in BlackBerry started to hit and Apple took over that as being the secure alternative. Agencies and government agencies and companies are using iOS devices as their mainly daily devices, and these devices are going and being that carry, you know, secure content and so on. So the question would be, are they violating their business consumers as well by going into that now and saying that we're and don't get me wrong, I understand what they're looking for, and I understand that there are certain degrees, obviously the causes could be argued as this is to protect everybody. I understand that part, but there are lines of where this is data, this is metadata or hash data, and we still haven't even start talking about the fact that if images are altered and how the hash data information gets basically slightly changes, does that make this image one way or another? And, you know, will there be human interaction with the content as well before it's validated and shipped over to the other company? Meaning to validate that what you're looking at, what the data is what the data, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different things. I feel it's just such a weird situation for them to do. It's like, it's like, you know, like, hold on, let me just go back on what I just built up, like you said.
And you get to the end of that where I'm doing the crackpot internet tinfoil hat speculation, follow the money game, but I keep running into roadblocks. I cannot envision Apple making a business move like this, which is so polarizing and so controversial, unless at the end of this chain, they can make more money by doing this than if they didn't do this. And the only thing I keep coming back to are the business models and regions of the world where they likely face resistance in selling their products. And this is their way to help grease the wheels of entering those markets. The only reason to potentially compromise the sort of security and the privacy of that end consumer, it only makes sense if Apple can make more money by doing it than by not doing it.
Absolutely, no, you're right. You're right.
It feels so cynical. Like I feel like I sound like just the craziest crackpot Apple hater when I say stuff like that. But I haven't seen any data to suggest another reason for them to do this, other than this helps us sell more product by opening potential markets that we didn't have access to before.
Exactly. It's you got to think about it at the end of the day. I mean, having it, the flip side of that conversation could also lead into obviously them making more money, because if they are more secure, if they are truly holding your back and keeping your content secure, that's one of the reasons why people would want to go with you. And this is, I understand they're going to lose. They're probably going to lose a certain number of people, but it's probably going to be drop in the bucket, obviously, for the number of people for the number of.
I mean, because the math on that makes perfect sense in my brain. You're going to lose what 2% of the crankiest security conscious people in North America,
exactly,
and then you get a whole other country that might not have done business with you before.
Well, I was going to say, and you gain like 20% or 10% over. Absolutely, in the wins and losses, obviously the math adds up to their favor. We're going to still need to see some more information. I'm not sure how. I'm surprised that there's no like legislation or anything like that in that matter at all, like talking about potentially vetoing this type of policy, because I don't think they can implement that, because like I said, they're scanning devices that are considered to be in.
Well, this is where our legal system is woefully behind. It's one of the things I didn't touch on as much in my Monday morning rant, but unlawful search and seizure. I did mention this. To me, feels like unlawful search. There's an amendment against that in which we amended our constitution to represent that ideal, but it's so cynical and it's being messaged by Apple so aggressively that if you confront this policy, it's too easy for them to come back and say, well, I guess someone is permissive of child abuse.
I know.
We here at Apple are really trying to help children. And I guess Google and Microsoft and Amazon are just okay with child abuse on their platforms, on their services, and on their products. And it's like, it's perfectly rigged with one of the most savagely efficient marketing PR departments on the planet. This is $1 trillion company, so they're good at marketing and messaging, and it's almost perfectly designed to be sort of unquestionable. Like, to question it means you're in line with these awful people that are hurting kids.
It's a tough spot to be in. You're right. It's an argument that you can't walk into expecting to walk out without looking like something. Yeah.
But it definitely opens up a conversation. Like I use my own NAS for storing huge chunks of data, and it's web enabled, and my wife's phone syncs up with it, and that's how we back up all of our stuff. And we've kind of backed off cloud, not because we had any deep-seated, untrustingness of our cloud services, but just big box of hard drives is more convenient for us. Like, we spent the money on it, and we actually do get these really great benefits out of it. Now, increasingly, I feel like that's becoming another opportunity for us to talk about what exactly is privacy. Where does your content belong? Do you own the products that you buy? because it's increasingly feeling like if you buy an Apple product, you don't really own it.
No,
You don't
it's
really have
more,
control
yeah,
over it.
it's more so year over year with more products, even on Android too. To a certain level, you really don't really own it. I mean, like you get a copy or you buy a phone, and there are built-in services, built-in tracking features built in from the carriers that you're buying, and you can't even uninstall them without rooting the phone. And even that became more hard because you can't, bootloaders are becoming locked down tight that you can't. It takes years of development to be able to unlock them, and by the time you do that, the phone's irrelevant at that point. It's one of those. It's a very different time. Like when I got into Android and when I got into modding and rooting and all of the different functions that we did, it was a different time. I don't want to make it sound like it was a long time ago, but it actually wasn't. It was like 5-6 years ago. And
oh no, I
now,
was flashing custom Windows mobile ROMs on my
oh,
PDAs and
absolutely.
stuff, man.
I
I
was
mean,
talking only
I'm
Android.
old.
I was only talking Android, but it's exactly what it is. Running on Windows Mobile, running.
There was that enthusiast idea of I can tinker with this. I took a Dremel tool to my what was it, the Apache, the PPC 6700 with the slide out keyboard, had a little selfie mirror by the camera that blocked the speaker, so I drilled it out so I could open up the whole speaker vent. I did, like modeling glue to put in a new mesh so it would have a vent so that I wouldn't get debris inside the phone.
Year over year, these type of enthusiast type of experiences are becoming less and less needed. Rooting is less and less relied on. I mean, depending on the countries where you are.
Right.
So it's changing. It is becoming more like you're paying for the phone, but you don't really own the experience on it. You can customize it and you can kind of tailor it, but you're for the most part kind of dealt a hand that from a company, and that's what it is. And if they choose not to support it and not give you updates, you're left to deal with by yourself.
Or even if they kind of just plan for a certain kind of hardware longevity that you were hoping to get more out of, you just kind of need to buy a new one.
Yeah,
sorry.
battery throttling the system because of a battery capacity is a fun way to do it.
So here the last little piece of all of this and the concern that I've got for this policy, because I genuinely want to talk about methods and systems and sort of empowering organizations and law enforcement to better combat this. And I feel this is ultimately going to prove a distraction that doesn't make the problem better if we're talking about reducing the spread and proliferation of abusive imagery. Because at some point, if you get a positive in the system, a human needs to get involved to verify it. So far, a very limited number of individuals are kind of legally allowed to have access to this material. And I don't know anyone that would want to sit there and sift through the content that might get flagged in this system and just constantly be bombarded by the absolute worst potential aspects of humanity. And so that's really only a job that a limited number of people can do legally, have access to this material to verify whether or not something is illegal abusive imagery. And that's going to be kind of a weight on law enforcement. So the individuals in law enforcement who are going to be tasked with completing the verification process of whether or not a flagged image or a series of flagged images on someone's iPhone truly is illegal content, those are individuals that I would much rather have doing the legwork to try and find the next
people.
The people that are going to be creating the next round of awful images. Their talents, their resources, their time, their money, their energy, I think would all be put to much better use trying to prevent the creation of this media, as opposed to trying to root out the individuals who may or may not be sharing it in the stupidest way possible on mobile products and devices, when we all are now being told very point blank, by the way, your phone's going to narc on you.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those conversations. You're right. It's still developing, and it is something that is sadly outside of our control to a certain point. As an end user, you don't really have a way of It's weird. It's like, you find out your car suddenly is doing something to you that you didn't know your car should be doing, and you thought it was supposed to get you where you need to without having to, tell everybody in the neighborhood he's driving this way, kind of thing.
Right.
Like a siren going on. But
well, and someone was trying to bring up some corollaries to that too. I saw one person making the argument like, well, I mean, you can install like an OBD2 reader in your car that'll narc on you if you drive dangerously, but if you drive well, then it gives you it gives you a credit, or it cuts your insurance bill. And you're like, you missed the core of that, where
you
can the state is not mandating that you install one of these in your car. So if you want to opt in to a system, again, I made the joke during the podcast, get 10 of your friends and then say, oh, by the way, once a week, a police officer is just going to look through all your stuff. Don't worry. He's a trained professional. He's very discreet. He's not going to tell anyone what's on your phones. But if he finds anything illegal, then you're probably going to go to jail.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'd have a hard time believing that anyone is going to opt in to that, to that, group law enforcement buddy check. I feel like you would have a lot of pushback, but Apple trying to cloud this in a bunch of like, well, AI and ML and hashing and image scanning and metadata, and you're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, at some point, an innocuous image of a family taking a photo of a baby in the bathtub is gonna make it to the FBI. It's not possible
to be validated, exactly, because to a certain point
you can't do it.
I don't believe that the collection of data that they have is finite enough to be able to distinguish between that type of content, which sadly all of us, all new parents Google over ooh and ah over their babies, and they're growing and they're eating, and then there'll be some baby in the tub kind of thing.
And to the same point, because I know our show's already running long. We have a 90-minute podcast that's now 100 minutes long. Did you catch the news article that Google is going to be implementing a new policy where not only any parent, but any child associated with a family Google account will be able to petition Google to say, remove any link to images of me, remove any personal data to images of me as a minor. And you're like, I feel like that's a more important baby step towards a society that obviously is fueled by a ridiculous amount of advertising and brokering of user data, but that's a respectable position to hold, where someone can literally say, hey, I'm a minor. You shouldn't be able to just plaster the internet with me. I didn't have a say in the matter because I was 3. Cut my data from that image and let me at least try and build my own social media mistakes and embarrassing images free of what my parents shared all over Facebook.
All over. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. We do to a certain point. Yeah, as parents, we do and tend to use.
I got to do the count because I know it. I've shared a few more, but I want to say I'm maybe at 8 total images that I've shared publicly of Lex. And I think that's pretty good for a 5-year-old.
I mean, obviously we're way ahead. I mean, Omar's been in videos.
No, but Omar can contribute to the conversition. Lex is 5. And I would say maybe in the next year or two, we can start having some conversations where she's a savvy little 5-year-old today. When she's 7, I think she's going to be perfectly able to contribute to a conversation about her likeness going up on social media or being in one of my videos, or we can handle that. But like, so when Omar says he wants to be a part of your videos, I think he understands what he's asking. If I ask Lex, she's just going to say, yeah, let's do it. She doesn't have a concept of, what that means, sharing your face on the internet.
It's when when Omar comes back, it's like, so how many views did that video get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much money does that one? I'm like, oh, you're kidding me, really? Who's your agent?
I love it.
I'm like,
tell him I used to be a talent agent. I can represent him really well.
I do not want him talking to you right now. I do not want you and him to meet.
I just feel you shouldn't be able to enter into a conversation with a child where we're talking about likeness use in perpetuity. So do we want to talk about like a 2-year contract on his images being used in your production? I feel like that's reasonable.
I feel like okay, I'll say this. I feel like I've paid enough for Pokemon cards to cover all of his,
Let me talk to you about a Coogan account for for child actors.
This is going to be such a weird. No, I
don't let him watch this podcast.
I'm really hoping he went to sleep already. He should be asleep. He has school in the morning. It's one of those things. I think we do need to talk about it though with our kids. We do need to have a conversation with them, sure. And they need to understand the fact that content online is a big fact. I mean, once it's online, it's online. Everybody.
But you know what's so funny, and this is why I loved this move from Google, because it wasn't just, when you turn 18 and you're an adult, then you can petition Google to go. I mean, like, you can start this process as a minor, because Google is at least kind of pointing to this, saying like, well, minors' images are being shared. Technically, they don't really have the legal authority to give permission for their likeness to be used in these kinds of ways, which we haven't fully explored all of the legal ramifications of digital distribution for consumers. That to me is what's so telling. The need on this, I kind of feel up and coming generations are already getting a little savvier and are already feeling a little that their likeness being used to get their parents' likes and shares and followers is kind of gross, is a little distasteful. And again, we make such a big deal out of this kind of like influencer economy, and we've had some friends that I kind of feel have overshared some of their family moments in trying to build this like Instagram kind of conversation, hoping they'd eventually become these types of influencers or family vloggers or whatever it is they're trying to do. And so that's just what I think is so fascinating is Google sort of pushing this initiative where I think the kids already have a pretty good take on this. And I think they're already coming onto the other side of, nah. I mean, at some point I'll probably want to build my own social media following, but I don't need to be pre-tagged in everything before I get a chance to make my own media and make my own mistakes and try and build my own community.
And I think to a certain point, he, for us, at least with Omar, he does have aspirations for, live streaming. He wants to do some gaming and stuff like that. He wants to participate, and it is something that he wants to do. But you're right. If you are not able to have that conversation, or you're not old enough to make that to grant permission for that content to be used, it is something that needs to be addressed. Hopefully, as you said, this generation is growing up with this. This is how they grew up. Our generation, not that I want to date us. I mean, we started, when we used to sit down and read books when we were bored, or trying to, go outside and play ball when we were bored. And then we didn't have the internet as when I was growing up as a child, and I got introduced to it. So we are in a lucky position to have experienced all of the era, right? The being introduced, having to raise a generation in it, where my son pinches and zooms everything on a screen without realizing that not everything is a touch screen. Really, like seriously, that iPad generation, I call it like everything to them is a pinch and zoom, like everything is a touch. And I'm like, no, that's a computer. It doesn't have a touch screen. We'll have to see how things. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's kind of the right note for us to wrap up on. And I think this kind of dovetailing with the DT's last comment here. The more tech savvy I get, the more I want to step away from the internet. And I disagree with that precisely because of the kinds of conversations that we're actually having in this chat right now.
Yeah.
But the tech savvier I get, the more closed off and the more insular I want to create my little pockets of digital friendships.
Yeah.
I'm way less interested in trying to boost the biggest numbers on social media, of always trying to make the best SEO for YouTube, of improving the time on site for Facebook by making such witty commentary and witty content that it makes Facebook better. I'm increasingly like wanting to kind of button down. These are the people that I actually kind of know, and I haven't met them face to face, so this is an online conversation, but I'll spend more time in a little Discord group than I will trying to like really make YouTube look super amazeballs and hype beast and stuff. Like, to me, the next phase for me of the internet will hopefully resemble smaller, tighter, more organic friendships, communities you actually build on these kinds of shared conversations, and less like, I hope everything I do goes viral. Like that to me is kind of the dying trend of the worst aspects of social media, and the potential for that. And what I see coming out of younger generations than me is kind of heading in that direction. They're not trying to blow up on Facebook. They're genuinely trying to find these like little insular, it's really, really cool, the hip new startup, the trendy new app or service that they can jump on before their parents find out about it. And then when it hits that mass acceptance level, they move on to the next little indie place where they can have those kinds of conversations free of parental observation.
And that's usually how it is. You're right. So with that being said, I do want to say, of course, thank you for everybody for hanging out with us. Michael Peppertech, everybody else, Gabriela as well. Aditya, as always. Hopefully things will get better. Hopefully things will do. I know you've been going on through some stuff, so I wish you the best, my friend. And we talked about a lot of serious things today. Obviously we didn't really mention specifically like the best of our week. I know it's the title of the show. This week has been an interesting week. It's been a very busy week, and it's still Thursday. There's still another day, so I'm not giving up hope that there'll be more things to do. I'll say this: the best thing of my week really is I'm glad to be healthy. I'm glad to be still part of this conversation. I'm glad that we're able to discuss these things and be able to explore these topics. And kind of recap and see how our lives are going. So
for sure.
Unpacked, listening health as well as privacy, those are big things that we should talk about. And we need to be aware and at least have the inclination now to be able to research it if you want to be able to learn more about it. With that being said, thank you, Juan, for hanging out again for another week, the best of our week, and we didn't sleep through this one.
I know, we didn't. Oh, we made it.
That is it's so weird that we would have similar daily the day experience. And just for reference for everybody, we didn't talk all day from the beginning, so we didn't realize that we were going through it.
We're vibing, man. It's like we're on the wavelength. It's kind of spooky, actually.
That is it. A little bit, yeah. But I hope next week we'll be doing much, much better. I have a few surprises next week coming up. A couple of new devices, maybe, I don't know, that I will hopefully be able to share with you guys some content on, and trying to get back into the groove of things. So, for the most part, I'm glad to be home. Saturday morning, by the way, I did the show live from
that was great, dude.
I couldn't skip it. I had to do it, regardless of the fact that it was choppy and it was not the best quality.
It still
you had to do it. Absolutely. So, for sure. And so, good night to everybody. If you're going to sleep, like as we are, or hopefully you have a great day. Take care of yourself. Be safe. We'll see you in another episode of Best of Our Week.
Sleep. That's where I'm a Viking.
That's how I like it. I win all my battles when I'm sleeping. Take care, everybody. Good night.